the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Featuring site publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McQuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.
Okay, we are back. That's right. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the unofficial 40 here on Soonerscoop.com, and we're here without drink in hand this time as we did our podcast, our emergency Saturday podcast. Excuse me, a little frog in the throat there. We did it while drinking. It was a nightmare to edit that thing the next day. I think it took about 3 hours to get rid of Eddie's rant against journalism student responsibilities and my rambling Kings of Leon night out story. That hit the cutting room floor too.
Yeah, there was I still haven't gone back and listened to it entirely. It's kind of like one of those things.
Did you wake up Sunday morning thinking, "Oh God, what did I say?"
No, I mean I felt fine with everything that was said. I just it was one of those things that you try and not revisit. It's like it's like getting really hammered and then going on a texting spree, and you just don't look at those text messages again.
You don't wake up that next morning and see, "Oh God, what did I do?"
No, I mean usually it's like, well, if it was bad enough, I'll hear about it at some point. So
Josh, he just at one point just left. He just quit because Eddie would not stop talking about. We tried to do the Josh Proctor report. That was one of the more maddening things about editing it. There were at least, you started and stopped Josh at least 5 times trying to tell the Josh Proctor news about his visit last weekend.
Yeah, you were talking about editing the thing, and the whole time I'm listening to you two talk, I'm like, for those that don't Skype, there's a little clock you can see at the bottom corner that shows you the run time of what the phone call you're involved with. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, we're at like an hour and 20, and I'm guaranteeing there's only 50 minutes of usable audio right now. So I was kind of editing through my mind. But yeah, you guys were full force though. I enjoyed it. There was a point when I was like, we have to get something done here tonight. So I had to get on and do other things.
The thing about it is everybody's like, "Oh, you son of a bitch, give us the unedited podcast." Like, I want to hear that. And no, you did not want to hear that. Like, it would have just been people going, "You two are drunken idiots. And you talk about stupid things that I don't care about."
I think people thought, like, what you edited out was, oh man, that's when they were really giving it to you. People, what they edited had nothing to do with Oklahoma. Like, it was random.
And it's not like we uncovered any criticism. Like, it's not like we edited any criticism. I mean, like, we never actually, and I had to listen back to it to edit, then I had to listen back to it to do the rundown. I don't think that we ever technically called for Mike Stoops' job.
No.
We just said, look, we're sympathetic to the fans who want him gone, basically. We understand your frustration.
We'll get into it, but I still feel the same where I was Saturday night.
I did too.
It's not the fact that they were so poor on Saturday. It's the fact that it is a continuous, time after time, year after year event when the OU defense just gets completely overtaken. Would that be the best way to say
Torched
it?
At some point.
Torched, yeah. So it was, the only thing that you guys missed out on was my announcement that I'll be taking my comedy tour on the on the road.
No talk about it. No. Don't mention the subject. I don't want to get into this. I deleted that for a reason.
With what Carey just said, I think anyone that's followed me for a while, it's not my place to call for a job. I wouldn't want someone to call for mine. I think I'm about as close to that point as I could ever possibly be.
Right.
But I mean that's not my place. That's another, like, I don't feel that way to really go into that sort of thing. But like I said in the podcast, I do think it's time for somebody else to be heard.
Here, and you talk about still feeling the same way. Here's how I feel, and I've felt this way since Saturday. To me, it's not even as much about schemes or it's a lot about coaching. I think we're learning, talking to people this week. I mean, just about preparing people to play But I thought the talent level was better than it is. I thought that Caleb Kelly would make a bigger difference. I didn't think that you would have any problems with Jordan Thomas this year. I've been surprised that Parnell Motley's as good as he is. But I thought Stephen Parker would be better. And then, linebacker, I didn't know. I thought, John Michael Terry would probably end up being the starter, but be a question mark and kind of learn as he goes. But then I've always been, I think you guys know, I've always been an Emmanuel Beal fan.
Yeah.
And I think I've been proven right to have been a Emmanuel Beal fan. And then I wondered on the front line, I thought Obo would have a really good year. But really what it comes down to is the depth sucks, and the frontline starters aren't as good or aren't playing as well as I thought that they would. And to me, that is on coaching. That is not having and developing talent, which is a major part of this job.
Well, what's crazy to me, and I was thinking about this a little while ago, when Lincoln Riley talked in the post game about, we're really hurting at some positions, or I think it was Monday during the press conference, and he talked about, we just don't have the depth. Like at running back, we can run Trey Sermon out there and we're okay. We can run this guy out, but on defense, we just don't have that depth. Where is Oklahoma hurt the most by depth right now? Defensive back and linebacker. Those are the two most tenured position coaches on that staff right now. Ruffin McNeil and Calvin Thibodeau, you can't blame them for what's on the defensive line, and the defensive line is the deepest group out there.
They've been the most impressive. I mean,
exactly. What sense does that make? And to me, that just feeds into this whole thing. Like Eddie said a little earlier, this is just a repetitive issue that won't seem to go away, and at some point, it's not always the players.
And look, we're talking big picture issues. At some point, we have to start focusing on the fact that this team is playing Texas this weekend. And I was really interested to see when we went in on Monday to Lincoln Riley's press conference, and even Baker's to some extent, like, what's the attitude going to be? Is he going to be fire and brimstone? Is he going to point fingers? Or is he going to do what I thought he would do, which is just to be the cool, calm, and collected head coach and start moving on to control the things he can control, which is playing better, and that's pretty much what he was. I thought, Eddie.
Yeah, no, I thought he was too, and it almost pissed me off the way that they were just like, we lost, no big deal. We just didn't want to play hard.
It's like you show up with your pitchforks and your burning torches, and you're ready to storm the castle,
and they just invite you in. They're like, come in, have dinner, have lunch. Why don't you brunch with us?
Let's talk about why you're upset.
Here, we'll pour you a drink.
And I'm going to make good reasons, and you're going to ask me questions, and I'm going to convince you that you don't really want to burn the castle down. I mean, that's kind of what it was like on Monday.
Yeah, and I get it. I get everybody's anger. Even in like the media luncheon thread, it's like it's not what you want to hear. You want to hear them come out and say, pretty much tear themselves down. And then you want to have the coaches tear them down, say everything sucks. Then they magically just come back and win by 50 on Saturday.
Maybe we could convince Lincoln Riley to have like a Sooner Scoop Crimson Corner town hall every once in a while after things like this happen.
Well,
people could get up there and just. They
kind of have that on Tuesday nights at his radio show.
We were joking about it, like he had his radio show, and I listened to it just to see if he said anything about injuries. By the way, I don't want to bear any leads here. Eddie had advised us of this, but it was interesting because CeeDee Lamb had tweeted out big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games.
Yeah.
On the heels of his minor setback for a major comeback tweet earlier.
On a Wednesday morning. And somebody actually asked him, one of those crazy-ass fans asked him, like, CeeDee, tell us you're all right, man. And he just said, I'm good. So that was on Monday night. So
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, I think CeeDee Lamb's a guy they could definitely use in this game.
I put it on the board. It's a complete guess on my part. So I think, Carey, you'll probably get a better – I'm sure Riley will give a better idea of where they are with injury-wise going into the Texas game on Wednesday night tonight. After practice, hasn't he in the past given at least a little bit of an update on Wednesdays?
It'll be asked, yeah.
Yeah. This is just my guess, but I would say probable Stephen Parker and CeeDee Lamb. Mike Stoops said that Stephen Parker practiced on Tuesday. Questionable, I'd say Abdul Adams.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'd probably even throw Drew Samia in there just because I have no idea. I'd be lying if I said I had any idea what was wrong with him. And then I'd say you can probably officially rule Matt Romar out just by the way that Marquise Overton was talking last night.
Yeah, that's a whole weird deal too.
I have no idea what's going on with
You
him.
and Charles Walker were boys.
You think Walker's like, just quit, man.
Look what it did for me.
It worked out for me. I'm back home.
That's a really sad deal, by the way. Like, I've heard some things about Charles Walker just kind of hitting people up for money and stuff.
Well, I mean, I feel sorry for guys like that, but at the same time, I don't feel sorry for him at all.
Somebody got a hold of him, gave him some really horrible information.
Yeah, there's no doubt about
and
that.
And advice.
I feel sorry that he didn't know better. I don't feel sorry because he chose to do it.
That's a good way to put it.
That's what's. I mean, it is like it's. I mean, guys, and it's not like this was unforeseen. We talked about this right when he did it, that this was going to be catastrophically bad for him.
To not be able to see that. Anyway, I didn't want to get into the whole Charles Walker thing.
Sure.
Okay, so this was kind of like, and the other interesting thing was last night we were going to talk to Mike Stoops. What was going to happen? Is he going to be, ultra defensive? Is he going to lash out at people for asking questions? And I thought we asked him fair questions. I mean, we didn't browbeat him, but to me personally. And I've said, you guys know, I've said this, like the thing that bothers me the most about what I've seen from this defense is two really below average quarterbacks that have lit you up. And in a complete inability to defend the pass.
They've played Baylor and Iowa State and are dead last in pass defense in the Big 12 right now. Like, think about that.
I guess the only thing worse is if you played K-State and in Iowa State.
Or Kansas.
K-State.
Did you guys see what Paul Clark put out a little while ago?
Yes, I did. I saw that you
Iowa
retweeted
State
it.
is averaging 30.4 offensive points scored in regulation through 5 games. Highs of 41 at Akron and 38 at Oklahoma.
That's a problem.
That's like, I don't know how you're not humiliated that information is factual.
Well, here's kind of what I took away from talking to, and you got a little bit of it talking to Lincoln, but talking to Mike Stoops yesterday, going in with the whole, quarterbacks are ripping you a new one, and I got a little bit different answer and a little bit different perspective than I thought I would. He kind of turned it around on me a little bit. You go early in the season without playing a lot of teams that just drop back and throw the ball a lot. I'm sure you've learned a lot about what your guys can and can't do. Does that make you kind of go in regards to pressure or try to dial things up more now, or how do you go about that?
That team didn't throw the ball. They had 160 yards on screens. They tried to keep it close. They tried to run the ball. They maintained the ball, kept drives alive. But the screens, they hit the last third down on JT on the fade for 25, and then they hit him on a 3rd and 14. Another just go ball. So our position again, those plays, we got to make them, but they did a good job just kind of moving the ball, by a lot of I didn't. There's a couple plays in there, and then Stevens before the half. That's just a bad call on my behalf. I shouldn't have let that receiver down the field, and Steven, he ran up on Steven, and he didn't give him enough room, and we told him to back up. So, there's a lot of things that we need to correct.
And so, kind of what that tells me is like, look, we focus so much on coaching and schemes and blitzing and pressure and all this stuff. But he's right to some extent, like, and this isn't the whole players got to make plays argument, but this is really, like, from Ohio State, you're sitting there, and I asked myself this question, like, what the hell happened to that? I think we did that on the Drunken podcast. Like, what the hell? I think I said these exact words. What the hell happened to the team that played at Ohio State? And when you start going through your head, Tulane, Baylor, Iowa State, can you guys tell me that you've seen a defense that is actually flying to the football and playing hard?
I think that's even going back and watching the game, that's the biggest thing you take away is just how half-ass everything was.
It really is. I mean, it has been.
And it's a big question mark because it's almost like, does that tell you that the players just don't believe in what they're doing?
Or they have shitty leadership, maybe.
That either
or they have shitty motivation from coaches. Yeah.
Right. But and I think my other argument too to that is, because I tweeted something out last night, was the fact that, you know, every player on that defense should take it personal the way that it looked on film. I mean, everybody looked like it was. You don't have to be a football genius to know that there were some guys half-assing a lot of it.
Think about this. I mean, your team captain got a personal foul for doing a wrestling move on someone on top of a pile. That's your team captain on defense. Your other, I think, is Steven Parker, which he's been one of your worst players on defense. And he's been hurt a lot. But, like, when you have, like, Eric Stryker as your captain, he's a guy that's making a ton of plays for you. And he is dynamic, and people believe in him and listen to him and follow him. I don't think good, solid leadership ever developed on this team. Like, there's nobody they're scared of. Like, Obo's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he laughs all the time, and he jokes around. He's not a serious person. But, like, is there anybody on that defense that can go to the team and just dog cuss them out and have them scared of them? Steven Parker's not that personality.
No, I don't think there are too many guys. I mean, they're young guys, and they haven't.
Matt Romar would probably be the only guy that has that type of personality.
Yeah,
and he hasn't been
just
playing.
Look at him, and say, "You're not even suiting out.
Yeah.
What are you doing?"
But you know, a guy that would be interesting, and you guys talked to him more than I even did during recruiting, is Beal. Beal seems very straightforward and kind of serious to me.
Yeah, he's kind of easygoing.
Yeah, that's
is he?
That's
Okay,
kind of the way
okay.
that I've gotten
You know him
it.
better than I do.
I think Beal's also kind of a guy that.
I think Kenneth Murray will be that guy someday.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Agreed.
I saw he tweeted something out last night talking about leaders aren't born overnight or something. And it was like, maybe this guy gets it. Maybe this guy somebody gets it.
I mean, if DJ Ward were a bigger factor, he could be one of those guys. But we've all known him for a long time. He's a pretty quiet guy. Yeah,
he's not going to say anything.
But I mean, literally, it is. And it's not just the defense too, because I mean, scoring 7 points in the second half against Iowa State is a tragedy. But just the defense, to hear these guys talk about, you know, just the effort and they had a team meeting this week. Obo talked about that, having to talk to guys. Here's Caleb Kelly. I talked to him, and Josh, I don't know if you've been able to hear any of this stuff.
No, I haven't so far. I'm gathering from what you guys respond.
So here's Caleb Kelly talking about. I had a little conversation with him about this stuff.
Caleb, it seems like, you know, when you guys have started games, you've played well, but once other teams get plays, it kind of snowballs on you. How do you, as a team, kind of combat that? Is it just talking to each other more, pumping each other up more?
I think it's just not being so hard on ourselves. I mean, we go into games and we do real well, and then once somebody the other team makes a play, we're all pissed off at each other, we're all yelling at each other, we're all like, we got that bad vibe, and I think we just need to just let it go, just keep on pushing, keep on playing, having fun, no matter what happens, just forget it, have a short-term memory, and just keep on going on, making plays.
I would assume also not having turnovers kind of leads to that when you don't have a way to switch the momentum.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you watch Ohio State, I mean, it's 3-3 at halftime, and you could tell coming out the locker room we were way more excited than how we were coming out the locker room this game, and we're up at halftime. So, I mean, I think it's just having short-term memory. No matter what goes on, we need to take every play as an opportunity to make a play and just have fun doing it.
And here's kind of along the same vein, talking to Parnell Motley.
How would you describe kind of, you know, the way you guys played against Ohio State versus the last two games? What's been missing the most from this team?
What I think for real is we was playing up to Ohio State and getting mentally prepared. At halftime, like Coach Riley put a point on, halftime we was hyped up. It was 3-3, and we came in against Tulane, all the other opponents. We up and we have low energy, so that was a big part on us. And we just got to not to play down to people. We got to play everyone like it's Ohio State teams like that. So we got to live up to the moments.
Is that like maybe a mindset that you guys just want to go out and dominate? That maybe you've still got to develop. That you want to dominate everybody that you play?
Yeah, definitely. Mama said we had to develop every game as we played, not just Ohio State or any other team. You got to prepare like every day is a championship, and every game is like a championship. So it's up to us if we want to compete or not.
And the Ohio State game came and went, and the whole time I remember even I was saying, like, boy, it just doesn't seem like anything's changed in this program. Like, Lincoln's just taking the job, and it feels the same as it's always felt. It seems the same as it's always felt. Well, I think we're seeing what the difference is between having Bob Stoops and not having Bob Stoops is, and that this is now a defense that just doesn't get that you have to play hard week in and week out.
I understand these kids, I guess kids or college kids, but how does that happen? I just don't understand it. Like
they're living the life. They got this fancy new locker room and facility, and they're just, they're pampered, and they got, treats when they come off the field.
Yeah.
They get their pineapple on a stick.
I think, and this is a very fan comment to say, but
I'm being very fan.
It is very angry. It makes me very angry to hear them just talk about how it's like, we just didn't play hard. It's like,
it makes everybody angry.
You have 12 games
that's very fan, yeah.
a year to go play, and especially for this team that all they've talked about is trying to win a national championship. It's on the goddamn intro video. Like, Baker Mayfield came back to win a national title.
Right,
they're gonna take that out because that's not happening this year. It's crazy to me to think that
don't say that, Eddie, because I need to know that the world is not going to end this weekend. Because, like, if they lose to Texas, then they got to take that out of the thing.
I mean, there's been a lot of people that have asked me on Twitter, and a bunch of my friends and stuff that what's going to happen this weekend. I honestly have no idea what team's going to show up.
Nobody does. I don't think they know.
Yeah. And that's a problem, isn't it?
And it's not just, but see, it's not just the defense. I mean, the offense, they come out, they score a bunch of points, and then they go into a lull. Like, they're just as responsible for they're just as much a part of this. Well, we kind of didn't give as much effort as we could have. Problem. Is that
on Lincoln Riley, Josh?
It's a top-down thing.
Is it? Because I don't think that.
I'm sorry, Josh.
OU gets up 14-0 or 14-3, 17-3 even. If they go in and score before halftime, who knows? I don't think Iowa State has much of a chance, even if they score before in the third quarter there before the fumble. I don't think a Bob Stoops team loses a lead like that. Is that a Lincoln Riley problem?
I think I don't know that you talk about the loss of the lead. I don't know if you can put that on Lincoln Riley solely, although you just kind of have to because the buck stops with the head coach. But do I think that's a loss that Bob Stoops has? No, I don't. I think to me, the thing that bothered me the most about that game was effort and discipline. You kept seeing OU doing stupid the Obo Okoronkwo thing. Parnell Motley losing, and I know everybody loves the term because I hear it from Mike so much, but losing leverage on that screen that made it 31-24 in the fourth quarter. Like, there were so many stupid mental mistakes that these guys know, and have known since they were sixth graders. You don't do these things. This is how you lose football games. And that's what this comes down to. And I don't know, and I think people that expected Lincoln Riley to come in and be fire and brimstone on Monday are just stupid. That wasn't going to happen. Like, that's just, and it goes into let's, just fire Mike. Why would you operate a whole season a man down, not only on your coaching staff, but in recruiting, everywhere else? That doesn't help you at all. That's just a silly belief. That's just not, because I could get onto that, but I'm not gonna. Anyway. Yeah, I don't think you can put this all on Lincoln Riley, and I disagree with Carey that the offense is just as culpable. Like, the offense, 31 points on your home field should be enough to win a football game. It should always be enough. Now, did they do all they could have? No, they weren't perfect. They weren't anywhere close. But at the same time, when your defense is allowing these long, tenuous drives, it's hard to build a lot of momentum. Like, it's hard to keep yourself in flow when you're getting the ball. What did OU have? Maybe 2 possessions in the third quarter? Like, that's going to be really hard to sustain yourself offensively.
Wow.
Crazy.
Eddie's he's finding some information more about OSU.
Oklahoma State just got subpoenaed by a New York grand jury for NCAA violations. That's crazy.
Like Mike Boynton, how are you still employed? Brad Underwood, how are you still employed?
Doug Gottlieb better dust off that resume.
Okay, well, I can't help but think. I mean, you look at Bob Stoops when he's your head coach. He's also a defensive guy, so he's always got his eye on the defense, his pulse on the defense. He just did. Like, they don't have that anymore, and I think Mike is a guy that is so he's so focused and laser focused on his defense. I think that's one of those things that he's not, like, Bob had to kind of learn how to oversee everything. Mike was a head coach and all that stuff, but I would not describe Mike as a touchy-feely person. And Bob wasn't really either, but I think Mike is much less. Like, I just think that Mike would have a hard time sensing if his team wasn't ready to play versus Bob. Or his defense, I would say. So what I'm saying is nobody's really there overseeing everything
that's going on.
And Mike is so used to having Bob, over his head and looking at things and pointing things out. And I guess that's what Ruffin was supposed to be in here. And that's what surprises me, too. Like, Ruffin is this really motivational guy and this and that. Like, how is this defense not playing with any passion when that's basically Ruffin McNeil's job, isn't it?
That's basically what we were led to believe. I mean, it's gotten... And the defensive line, I guess, has played better to an extent.
As a position,
maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like...
They're still not getting any pressure.
He needs to come in and talk to the Bobs. What are you doing here? It's like Office Space.
I celebrate the guy's entire catalog.
I had that ready for you.
That's nice. I was thinking about this earlier too. It's like while I was driving down, Mike Stoops reminds me a little bit of myself in college when...
Aren't you still yourself in college?
A little bit, but my parents, would give me money at the beginning of every month, and halfway through the month, I'd be calling and it'd all be gone, and I'd play this poor pity me. Sorry, I won't do it again, and I'd just do it every month. It's like a clock almost.
God, and your parents must love us.
At some point, you got to cut them off.
Did they do that?
No, they didn't. But
they never cut you off?
No, white privilege.
I'm surprised that I've never received more outreach from your parents or Josh. Like, thank you for taking him off of our hands, because we essentially married you.
No, they know. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. The minutia of what is wrong with this team and breaking it down, we could do it all day. And I feel like I'm approaching this from a kind of a very deep level dive situation when we're questioning, Bob being gone and Ruffin and what's his deal. The long and short of it is they've got to play harder, they've got to play better, and they've got to get turnovers and that's the weirdest thing about this team, Josh, is like, I don't know that I've ever seen a team when one thing goes wrong, they just completely fall apart. That's what this team does.
There's a word for it.
Are you writing it down?
No, I'm just saying there is a word for that, and it's we'll put it this way: it's weak-minded is one way to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I agree with Eddie. Like, I don't know how many times, I mean, we talked about it during the Drunk podcast. I talked about it on Twitter during the game. How many times can we hear the players, well, we've just got to restart, we've got to get it going, and blah, blah. No, you're halfway through the season. Your mind should be where it's supposed to be.
At some point, you are what you are.
Yep.
Exactly. Like, we can't keep having this conversation about, oh, we're going to get it right now. No, you are who you are. And I think what you have to accept about this defense is they're not going to be great. They're just not. So what you've got to try to do is go to the Glenn Spencer model, and we're going to be opportunistic. We're going to try to create turnovers. We're going to be probably a little overly aggressive, trying to force some things to happen, so that if we've got to win a shootout, we're going to give our offense the ball as many times as possible to try and do that. Like, because this is not a defense that's going to line up and stop good offenses. I don't know how you can buy into that right now. Now, maybe they'll prove me wrong down the road, but when you're arguably your two most experienced and most talented players, Stephen Parker and Jordan Thomas, are giving you what they're giving you right now, that's I don't know. I feel like you're just kind of wishing upon a star and hoping things are going to change when there's no reason to believe it will.
Here's the thing, though. You can do all the taking chances and all that stuff. I don't really know what that means other than, adding to your blitz package or, trying to play guys over the top of other guys or whatever, dropping guys into coverage versus, blitz them. Here's the thing. Like Parnell Motley, pretty good player. He's doing his job. He's getting turnovers. Jordan Thomas, Stephen Parker, why don't you just do your jobs? And then you'll be in the right place to get some turnovers. Caleb Kelly, do your job better, and you'll get more tackles for loss.
We've talked about Stephen Parker probably being injured. Clearly something's not right with him. But the play he made before the end of the first half, that's unforgivable. That cannot happen to your 3-year starting senior safety.
Yeah.
I will say Mike Stoops took complete responsibility for it last night, saying that he should have never put Stephen Parker in that position.
Yeah, he did.
Really?
Yeah, we played it in the club. I'm sorry you couldn't hear it.
Hey, everybody out there drink. I didn't hear the audio. So no, but yeah, I mean, and that stuff, and I know you guys played the Mike audio, and I'm really doing all I can not to rant and rave about the out-talented comment. Maybe, did I miss context on that, or is that as bad as it sounded?
No, it's bad.
Okay.
Because you're at Oklahoma, you can't use that crutch. You're at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, and you just got beat by Iowa State.
Yeah, you got beat by a third-string walk-on quarterback.
Yeah,
people are also going to look for, I mean, they're looking for things to jump on, I feel like. Especially anything that Mike Stoops says.
It's true.
But at the same time, I mean, I tweeted it out yet on Monday, but OU right now is 108th in the country in interceptions.
They have 2, right?
They have 2. It's something that it continues to happen, though.
Texas has a guy that has like 6 or something.
He had 3 against Iowa State. 3.
I can think. All right, I want you guys to name me 3 players for Iowa State that would factor into the 2 deep at Oklahoma.
I couldn't name 3 players from Iowa State besides David.
I can
Montgomery.
name you 2.
Their corner could play
David
for
Montgomery
Jordan
and
Thomas.
Charlie Kolar. A guy that doesn't even play.
Well, you forgot Carson Epps from Jinx. They got a good Oklahoma feel. But no, Lazard and Montgomery, I think, clearly would play for Oklahoma. Carey's probably right that any corner on that roster with a pulse would probably play. But with that exception, you just can't. And I don't know. Like, I think part of it is Mike is being who he is. Like Carey said, he's very honest. He's very open. And I really like that about him. I like that he is just going to tell you what he sees.
It is also not for the benefit of the fans why he's saying that. He's saying that to tell his own players, like, you guys think that you just have all this talent and you don't.
Yeah. And, and that'll get back into the macro. Again, if it's true, it's still on you. Right. Like, no matter how you spin that dice, if you don't have enough talent, well, who's responsible for bringing in the talent?
No, there's no doubt about it.
So, I mean, that gets into the macro, and I know that's not what we're wanting to do. It's just, I don't know how you can ring that bell after you lost to Iowa State. Now, if you lose to Ohio State, no problem. I talked about that last week. Oklahoma is not nearly as talented as some of the really elite teams in college football. But Iowa State, like I just said something a few minutes ago on Twitter, Iowa State would give their firstborn to have Oklahoma's talent.
Oh, yeah. Matt Campbell would love to coach that team.
Yes,
he'd switch
absolutely.
rosters in a heartbeat.
Sorry, I know we want to move on to other stuff, so let's dive into something else.
What are the chances that OU just gets run in the Cotton Bowl this weekend?
I would be more shocked about that
than
I was last week.
You would?
Yeah, if they got
run.
absolute. Yeah, because I don't think that I don't think that they have 100 P words down there. They might have like 5 or 6, and they might be starters, but I don't think that they're all just completely without intestinal.
So you're
fortitude.
saying that you think Oklahoma has enough pride that they're going to play well?
I would hope, and if they don't, they should fire every coach on the staff this week. Seriously.
Well, that won't happen.
I know it won't.
Carey,
happen,
what would be more surprising to you, a Texas blowout or an Oklahoma blowout?
That's a good question.
I think I'd be more surprised by an Oklahoma blowout, just because I think Texas's defense will keep them hanging around.
But then I'm like, how did K-State score so many?
That's true. I mean,
of course, I'm sure that was Texas. They're getting ready for Oklahoma. I'm sure Tom Herman probably spent like 3 days on Kansas State and 2 on Oklahoma even last week, because that's kind of what he does.
Yep.
He's known for prepping for the big game, yeah.
Yep.
But he doesn't have to get another job now, so maybe he should stop doing that. I mean, I would say it'd be more surprising if Texas blew Oklahoma out. Just because, I mean, now, if Baker Mayfield goes down, all bets are off.
Sure.
But I just think Oklahoma has enough offense where they wouldn't get blown out. Now, blowout, is that 30-point win? Is that 17? I mean, I can see OU losing by 17.
Anything that this game spreads beyond 3 touchdowns would be pretty surprising, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Like, if Oklahoma won 28-10, okay, I could see that. But 31-10, 35-10, that starts to get a little hard for me to imagine how that would play.
Yeah, I would say, God, 10. I mean, OU's not going to hold anybody to 10.
Yeah. Oh no, you're right. I mean that's the deal, and that's the same thing. As easily as I can say I like Texas's defense and they gave up 34, I don't like Texas's offense and they scored 40. So, who knows?
I think they almost be better off. I know Ellinger, I think he's the better quarterback. He's a gamer. I like the kid as a player. Too. But they almost might be better just having Buechele back there. Just sit. Of course, their offensive line is horrible.
Yeah, but OU's going to rush 3. I mean, it doesn't even really matter.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, does Texas have the balls to rush 3? And if they do, what's OU's answer? Because their answer against Iowa State was crap.
Yeah,
they should have run for 300 yards in that game.
OU,
yeah.
That's the thing that I don't understand about this. All week we've talked about Iowa State dropping 8. Well, if they're dropping 8, you're supposed to have the best offensive line in the country, and I'm using air quotes. Like, they didn't even try to take advantage of it. That was shocking.
And I thought it was a mistake not using Marcellus Sutton in that game, because if you are dropping 8, you want a fast guy in the back. You don't need your big bruiser. You need your guy that is quick. That all your offensive linemen are going to have to do is wall off a couple of people. You're going to have lanes to run through. It doesn't. You're right. We keep talking about the drop, and people were asked about that all week. What are you going to do if they drop 8? And the other thing is, they could have just run Baker right down the middle for 5 yards every time, and he could have just slid.
I heard a kind of an interesting, I guess, opinion this week was the fact that, it's not like Baker Mayfield has never scrambled in his entire life. Like, people were acting like this finding receivers in the scramble drill was something new to him. It was almost like there was nobody around him and he almost freaked out, didn't know what to do.
Yeah. He had 5 rushes for 55 yards, I think, on that drive after CeeDee Lamb got hurt.
Right.
So, I mean, he could have kept doing that all day, but what I'm saying is, at least have a running back in there that can do some of the same. If you've got 5-on-3, my God, with that offensive line, you'd be a fool not to. Well, they didn't.
You are fools.
Sorry, Lincoln.
And I assume, Carey, because you've said this, we know Marcellus Sutton was in the building and dressed on Saturday.
Yeah,
100%.
They all were.
I
remember going down the checklist.
Like, is he in trouble? Because there's no other explanation. Because Rodney Anderson is not bringing anything.
What was it? The Florida Atlantic game, Eddie, when you noticed he had like a big wrap around his wrist?
Yes.
Like he was down doing
No, that
warm-ups.
was in Ohio State. That was in Columbus.
Okay. So, I mean, maybe he has a wrist issue and they're worried about him.
I didn't notice if he had it, though.
Gary, did you say Florida Atlantic?
Yeah. What did I say, Florida? Tulane. Sorry.
Same school.
That's all.
It's the same. It ends up being the same thing.
They probably would beat OU last week anyways.
Yeah.
Tulane beat the shit out of Tulsa last weekend.
I saw that and I thought maybe that win's going to look pretty good, but that was, early second quarter of OU Iowa State, and before I realized that wasn't really going to matter.
Yeah.
So
comparative scores go out the window when you get beat by Iowa State.
Yep. You lose all that high ground.
No, but I would imagine that Texas will play a pretty base defense. They're good enough up front. They don't have to drop 8. And I don't think OU's good enough. Their secondary's good enough, and OU's not good enough at receiver that they don't need to drop 8. It'd be dumb if they did.
Jordan Thomas. I know that he's not the most popular person on the Oklahoma football team right now.
And by the way, I'll say this. Calling for Mike Stoops' job makes more sense than calling for Jordan Thomas's job.
I mean, it makes sense. He's been bad. I think we can say that.
But he's not like Dakota Austin bad.
He's not getting burnt, though. And I think that's the thing that angers people when you tell them that. It's like they look at only the results when really, at some point, the odds are in Thomas's favor to at least get one pass breakup, right?
I'm going to play something from Mike Stoops here because I asked him about Jordan Thomas.
Mike, you look at Jordan Thomas, and I think I only remember the play at Baylor where it was really just a bust. But, I mean, he's been right there, to make plays. What do you say to him to kind of keep his confidence up? Or?
Nothing. He needs to make a play, and everything will turn around. So he needs to keep working. He needs to, work fundamentally. I think it's where it all starts. And mentally, just know that he knows he's capable. He's done it before. He's done it many times. So he's going to get challenged, and he knows it. But he's just got to keep doing what he does, and he needs to make a big play to get this thing turned around in his direction.
I take it your belief in him hasn't waned as far as a player.
No, we still have confidence in all our guys. I mean, it's more than Jordan Thomas. Believe me, this is a collective effort. Coaches, players. I mean, we're not playing the right way, and that's to me is the most concerning part. It's not any one individual. It's our, like I said, it's fundamentally our character. We've gone through these before, and we're just not playing. We're not playing hard enough, and that's our fault.
So basically, Mike, and I'm paraphrasing because Josh can't hear, but basically I asked, what do you do to help him with his confidence? And Mike, his answer was, well, we stop babying him. We just, at some point you got to go out there and make some plays. And he was asked like a follow-up that I didn't play about, what were some of the things, the techniques and things like that he failed on. And he said on that touchdown play to Lazard at the end, he said he went up and tried to jam him, and he did it wrong, and then he slipped. He fell down, and so then he got up and tried to catch up, and you saw the picture. I mean, he jumps up there, the ball goes right past his arm, but that's just another example of like he can't buy a break.
And I think it's also an example of a player not doing his job. I think that isn't he supposed to get a little bit of help over the top, and Chance Sylvie's nowhere to be found. Or he's late getting over.
I think Sylvie was late getting there. And, guys, his coverage in the Iowa State game was better, in my opinion, than it was against Ohio State.
And he did have a bullshit penalty called on him. Like, he turned his shoulder exactly like they teach you. And just because he played it correctly, the dumbass Big 12 ref threw a flag.
They were both soft, but the one that was the vertical route that's a horrible call. That was just wrong.
But again, you can't be in that position against Iowa State. I mean,
it shouldn't have to matter.
Right. The two personal fouls, I still don't know what Kenneth Murray did. I really don't. I haven't.
Oh, I saw it.
I haven't gone back and seen.
He got into a little punching fight with somebody, and he got caught. It was his fault. I mean, it was a stupid penalty. Right. That's the dumbest thing in sports, punching a guy that's got a helmet on.
Not smart.
Dumbest thing in sports.
But, I mean, that one you're like, okay, true freshman. He's going to do some stupid stuff sometimes. Like, you have to kind of live with those growing pains. Like, he shouldn't do it. It's stupid. But you can kind of look the other way on it. Obo doing his WWE into the pile.
Idiotic.
That's unforgivable.
It's the dumbest penalty I have personally witnessed at an OU football game in 10 years. And that's saying that without any examples, but
I don't know. Orlando Brown had some dumb ones.
Yeah.
Like where he would just get baited and the ref was standing right there and then he would just punch a guy in the face.
I would almost rather see that, though, because that at least shows a little bit of passion.
Not stupidity, passion.
Yeah.
Look, this team, they suck right now. And they need to know that they suck right now. And you hope that it will get into their heads, like, that they'll be embarrassed about it. And that they'll actually, because they're better than this. This defense is better than this. They have players that that should make them better than this. But they suck right now.
Well,
I think it's completely, they got in their heads. You can talk about the Twitter generation. And because I was thinking about this today, Eddie, like, when we would tweet out things after games, whether post-game, like people would go back even on my in-game tweets. Like if I mentioned Kenneth Murray or something, he would go back in and like stuff or retweet stuff.
Right.
Like he wasn't even tagged in. So like after that Ohio State game, those guys were all drunk on themselves.
Yeah.
And how great they were. And it's all been downhill since then. You could totally say it's a generational thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
Glad that I wasn't saying it. That's the thing, though, is like, I guess there is a certain mentality that you have to have, and I think Alabama has it. I think Clemson has it, and Oklahoma obviously doesn't have it.
It's a championship mentality.
And they do not have it. And I think that's why... I think that's probably the toughest pill to swallow for a lot of Oklahoma fans is the fact that they don't have it, and because of that, you're now 5 games into the season, and you're kind of standing there now, thinking like, "What the hell? Who is this team?" And I think that we're gonna find out a lot about it on Saturday and what they bring to the Cotton Bowl.
You know what the other thing is? It's not just the players, and I hate saying this because it's great for us. Coaches retweet a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for recruits.
Yeah.
But then the players see it and they're like, hey, coach is out there looking at what we're doing and he thinks it's great and he's retweeting it. And like it's just such a weird balance with all that stuff.
I feel like that's such I don't know if it's millennial or just like, it's such a high school thing though, because it's like these guys should know better. Like,
than to read their own press clippings?
Yes. I mean, because it's been happening
that's a rule
for so
forever.
long.
Yeah. But it's just different because, like,
when in actuality, they hadn't done shit.
Well, they weren't delivering the newspaper to your door.
Right.
You know, when you're in high school. You were just a high school kid.
With your name highlighted every time it's mentioned.
You might go to school, and someone might have a paper, and you might grab it and read it. But, like, on Twitter, it's in your face all the time. Like, It's just, if Ruffin McNeil retweets something about Kenneth Murray had a great game against Ohio State, he sees that Ruffin McNeil is retweeting it.
I feel like, though, that's almost I feel like that's an excuse, to be honest.
But I'm just saying, these kids get it built into their head that they've arrived. When as you say, Alabama and Clemson know that just because you go on the road and beat Florida State, that doesn't mean that you've arrived. And Lincoln Riley said it after the game. Ohio State is not going to be the highlight of our season. Well, guess what, Lincoln Riley? So far, it's looking like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and you know what? The high point is getting outweighed by massive, massive low points, not just of the season, in the history of the program. And you're in charge of it.
Like the worst
fix it.
The worst tanking in the history of any OU season? Is that what you're implying?
Yes. I mean, I wish that I could tell you that this is some kind of massive shaving point scheme. I'd be a little butthurt that I wasn't a part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you going in on Texas this weekend?
Probably need to. I don't think you touch the game, by the way. That's my betting tip of the week.
I don't think this is one you ever should touch. Weird rivalry games.
Right.
They have a way of going weird.
Maybe play with the over, though, if you wanted.
Eddie can't help himself.
I think we're headed toward a war this weekend.
I hope there is
maybe
a war.
pregame fight.
Oh, I'd bet money.
I'll probably be blocked out from getting any video of it. So.
Oh, I bet it'll spill everywhere. You'll get whatever. I don't think those Austin.
Should I wear a poncho in case blood starts?
Well, Texas is in charge, so it's not OU, so they have no control.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't know. They don't know about the Eddie. So, it's OU Texas weekend. Texas is the home team. Can they even still invite recruits to the game, Josh? I feel like we're heading in a direction.
Of guys there.
Yeah, I feel like we're headed in a direction where eventually they're just going to tell these teams you can't even invite guys.
That would probably be the most NCAA thing of all time, is to get their nose in something like that.
But I mean,
there's so much other shit going on.
They used to be able to go down on the field and stuff. They can't even do that anymore. They just have to go and sit in the stands. What was it? Was it Barry Sanders Jr. that went one year and sat on Texas' side or something?
I think that's right.
Everybody
I want to say Sterling Shepard was with him. I mean, it would have made sense.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Can't remember, though. Because it would have been Sterling's senior year.
But, Josh, let's talk about the worst-case scenario. Let's say Texas wins this thing this weekend. How much momentum does that carry for them?
Because, I think it's huge.
They're already doing well.
Yeah, you're Oklahoma. We talked about it all offseason that Texas was doing so well because it didn't have to live up to anything yet. We're going to be great. We're going to get things going, and then they lost to Maryland, and then we thought, okay, well, here the rubber has met the road. Now
it was almost like it was almost like they disappeared from the recruiting map after that Maryland game.
Exactly, and then even after the USC win, to their credit or to their good fortune, USC hadn't slipped up against Washington State yet. They had the, that still looked like, oh man, maybe Texas really is good. When I think it's a little bit of both. Texas is a little better than maybe we thought, and USC is not nearly as good as we thought. So that looked great, and now they get a chance to come in and, against a school they're going to recruit a ton against head-to-head going forward. To me, this win gives Texas credibility. It gives Tom Herman the ability to say, see, we're turning things around. Oklahoma's headed in the wrong direction under Lincoln Riley. I'm going to get things going right for Texas. And how can OU argue against it? There's no track record to say that's not true. They don't get to go back and say, well, look what Bob's done over the last 20 years like they've been able to do like a couple of years ago when Texas upset Oklahoma. It got to be, well, okay, you can choose Charlie Strong's one good win, or you can look at 20 years of Bob Stoops. It's your choice. And obviously, a lot of kids still went with Charlie Strong.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma at least had something to combat it with. With Lincoln, they're not going to have anything to combat it with. It's going to be a couple of 3-2 football teams. So Oklahoma needs this win. They need to go out and show everybody that everything's okay. That last week was just a big blip. And, to be fair, kind of comparing the two regimes, those blips happened under Bob Stoops. We talked about it during the Drunken podcast. Losses like this have become a little bit of a thing within the Oklahoma program. So I think it can be avoided. And Oklahoma should win this game. Let's be honest. They're a better football team. They're more experienced. There's a whole lot of reasons they should do this. But as far as recruiting goes, Texas will get a huge bounce out of this if they can find a way to win.
What are there any key OU targets that are going to be there visiting with Texas?
I've been working with Jason Sukamel a little bit on it, and I don't have a lengthy list. I'd like to tell you that I did. Usually he kind of leads the charge when it's a Texas year. I kind of do it when it's no U year. Texas being the home team, like we've talked about, they're going to have all the invitations to send out. But, I mean, you can expect guys like Bobby Brown, I'm sure will be there. You know, you kind of go down the list. There's going to be a lot of the big-time guys. I think more where you'll see this is 2019 because both classes are pretty locked up. There's very few still head-to-head battles for a lot of the elite guys that both schools are in on. So I don't think you'll see a lot in 2018 that's going to have a huge impact. But 2019, you're going to see a ton of guys that both schools want that are going to be there. I think you look at some guys like Marquez Beeson, Brian Williams, both those guys from Bishop Dunn in Dallas. I would expect them to be there. I don't know that, just, kind of reading the tea leaves. But, 2019 is where this game will have a big impact, and it can either vault OU forward or they're going to have to try to pick up the pieces and figure some things out and really have surrendered all that momentum they built after the Ohio State win.
Well, and it's big not just for the whole Texas thing, but I would think it's pretty big just for momentum right now for that big official visit weekend that's coming up, because you've been pointing to this for a while now. Texas Tech, is any of the luster lost there after losing to Iowa State from that?
Oh, sure, a little bit. I mean, I think anybody that thinks that doesn't have any impact, I don't think that's very realistic. These are high school kids. It has a role. Do I think that kids make their decisions based on that stuff? Hell no. That's not what it's about.
Here's the thing that I'm sorry to hear, but here's the thing that I always want to bring up when people, because it's like, and it kind of is more of a thing on Twitter, I think, than it is with Sooner Scoopers, which is people don't realize this. Kids in high school, they don't go undefeated. They lose games. They understand what it's like to lose a football game. Like, if anybody understands, because like everybody's like, oh God, Josh Proctor, he's gonna just, OU's done. He's going to Ohio State now. It's official, isn't it? But it's like, you think that Josh Proctor hasn't lost football games in his life? Like, he has. Like, they're great this year. Owasso is. But most of these kids look at it from the perspective of, you do lose games sometimes, and it sucks. But it's not the end of the world.
And, I think even guys, whether it's on Twitter, on our board, that played football, they forget about it. They forget, you had bad losses too. Yeah, you had high school games where maybe you didn't play as well as you could have or should have or whatever. They forget that. High school kids are like, yeah, man, 2 weeks ago against wherever, I just didn't have my best game. I didn't play very well. I didn't feel good, whatever it may be. A good example of you talking about, guys just lose. Somebody asked me last night during the chat, how does this affect Merlin Robertson? That loss. Merlin Robertson's 3-3 right now for Gardena Serra, one of the most talented teams in California. Like, losses just happen sometimes, and the kids are far less likely to hold that against Oklahoma than a fan or whatever. They're just going to look at it differently, and a lot of that is they don't follow it day to day.
Yeah,
like a fan is going to get his emotion all tied up into it. And the loss is going to seem worse than it is. It's going to seem, this is just unbelievable. And Iowa State, those guys are, just a bunch of clowns. They shouldn't be out there, whatever. Where a recruit's going to be like, yeah, I actually know a couple guys that played Iowa State. They're good players. It's just they look at it a little differently. And I don't think a lot of recruits are going to, again, no kid is going to go to Oklahoma or not go to Oklahoma because of Iowa State. Just like no kid was going to go to Oklahoma or not go to Oklahoma because of Ohio State. It works the same way. It obviously helps if you win, but it's not going to be, it's not the deciding factor one game or another.
Let's go back and maybe kind of recap some things that have happened, maybe some big picture stuff, but in terms of Oklahoma kind of now playing games and having that bye week where the coaches went out and kind of got all over the country. Any kind of feedback? I know you've had some, but kind of recap maybe some of the conversations you've had with guys that they got to go visit that they really kind of zeroed in on that weekend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you kind of touched on it earlier, and I think a lot of people kind of saw that Iowa State visit and focused on Josh Proctor. And kind of some thought, well, there weren't a lot of visitors outside of that. And, just to kind of go back to the point you raised earlier, Texas Tech, TCU, those look very, very much like your big visit weekend. So kind of just approach it like that, where you're looking at, Oklahoma's got some other home games, but they're going to really focus on getting guys there those 2 weekends. And frankly, maybe West Virginia. If West Virginia can continue to play good football and kind of build, that could be a top 25 game to end the season. Now, inviting kids from Florida or California or wherever Oklahoma's looking to a November 25th game in Norman, Oklahoma, that's a little bit of a roll of the dice sometimes. So, we'll look at that as we get down the road. But yeah, talking to a lot of the guys that they went around and saw, one of the best examples is Isaiah Martin, a guy from the Los Angeles area, Rivals 250 defensive end that OU offered a couple of weeks ago after they went out and saw him in person. Tim Kish went to see him. And he has actually already set up his official visit, just a few weeks after being offered, and really a few weeks after OU just got serious with him. I mean, he's going to come in for that Texas Tech weekend. That's a big-time guy. Really interesting to me about him is when I talk to people, I get the impression that they see him as a 4-3 defensive end. Not as a 3-4 outside linebacker, but purely as a 4-3 defensive end. And yet you're recruiting these other guys as 3-4 defensive ends. So Oklahoma still going forward looks to be, looking at a lot of different options with what they can do defensively. And he's a good example of it. Obviously, Ruben Unajay's visit's coming up. Oklahoma went down to see him. Noah Kane as well. A lot of 2019 names. One of the actual interesting ones is Oklahoma went to see Ronnie Perkins last weekend. Calvin Thibodeau
went all the way up to St. Louis.
Yeah, made the trip up. It was I actually got to see Ronnie Perkins block a punt, pick it up, and one-handed run it in for a touchdown. So was there for a pretty good night for him. And really, I think Oklahoma continues to be in good shape there. It's just an interesting time because, like I said, when we were talking about momentum, Oklahoma needs some momentum because they've got some guys that are really close. They need some guys, just need something to push them over the finish line. And I think Oklahoma was right on the cusp of it, and then they sputter out last weekend and kind of allow some things to maybe go soft and make it a little harder to push on a guy, and that's what I talk about when I say it does make a difference. When you're on top of the world, it's easier to squeeze a guy a little bit and say, hey, we need you here this weekend. We want you to, lock up your spot if you want it, those sort of things. And when you're losing, or not losing, but when you lose a game like that, it makes it harder to kind of put that gentle pressure on a recruit that you think is about ready to make his decision.
I also think, there is reality and there's the utopia that coaches would love to exist in. It's kind of what you're talking about. And now I don't think you can bury your head in the sand and say there's now controversy around the defensive staff. Josh Proctor is a defensive guy, and if you have any brain in your head, you got to. If you're a kid, you got to think, okay, I'm going to let this play out, see what happens. Am I wrong completely. There?
No, that's one of those things that people don't think about when they say, in the same breath, I want Josh Proctor and I want Mike Stoops gone. Well, yeah. That's not to say that if it goes down that road with Mike, that whoever replaces him wouldn't be able to recruit Josh. But the thing you have to remember, Josh is a midterm guy. So at some point, there's not going to be the time to develop that relationship because presumably whoever OU would hire would be coaching somewhere else and would want to finish out his season. So there are some, to me, if you get rid of Mike Stoops, you're almost certainly not getting Josh Proctor. So there is and that's not to say that Mike is the only guy recruiting Josh, but he was there when the offer happened. Mike recruits the state of Oklahoma for OU. He's a big part of that, and he's been around Josh a lot. So I think that would be a tough hill to overcome because not only is Josh picking a place that he hasn't been committed to for months, that he doesn't know the staff as well as he does at Ohio State, but now he's going to have to hope that they hire the right defensive coordinator that's going to fit him.
Wait, you're telling me that if they fired Mike Stoops, they wouldn't just automatically get better? That's the way that I was under the impression.
It's going to cure everything overnight, Eddie. That all the problems go away.
Yeah.
And
fix it through firing. That's my motto.
Well, actually,
You're not the only
read-
person in this country that thinks that's the motto.
I've read plausible accounts that say Trey Sermon and Baker Mayfield blamed their miscommunication on Mike Stoops. So, who knows?
You're in that kind of text group, huh?
I thought it was interesting talking to Sermon. I know it's kind of changing the subject, but he said that his alignment was the reason that they fumbled there inside the 5. The snap thing does worry me a little bit. Eric Wren has a tendency to miss high.
He's been snapping really high lately.
And I understand he's trying to get out quickly, and I think that causes the reason for the high snap, but that would be a very inopportune time. I think I put on the board it'll happen this weekend, but it'd be a very inopportune time to snap a ball over Maple's head.
Eddie, you're just
on Saturday.
Man, that's on you if it happens.
I already said it's going to happen.
Does anyone out there think Carey's just kind of pulling for Eric Wren to go bad?
Why? Why am I pulling for him to go bad?
We know that there is
Humphrey
something between you and
son?
Creed Humphrey. Yes,
My son.
I mean, you're looking out for your adopted child. I guess given away to adoption child. So
if I had his height, I wouldn't be here right now. I would have been finishing up my 15 years in Major League Baseball.
You could have threw it over them mountains, Carey. You could have.
Although, you know what? It is funny, like, I'm watching with the binoculars as the recruits are walking in, like seeing Bray Walker walk in with his dad. And his dad's like, I'm sure his dad's like, how the hell did I produce this child? But he does kind of look like his mini-me. His dad does.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, he does. Like, both of his sons, particularly Trey's older brother, looks just like Corwin. It's crazy. Like,
by the way, that is no way an admission that Creed Humphrey is my son. I'm not saying that.
I heard no denial. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm
not
saying,
denying. I am denying that. He's not.
No, but I guess it's easier to understand because I've actually talked to Corwin and he'll talk about feeding Bray and it's just I cannot fathom the food bill in that house. Like, and for any of these kids that are just, I'm sure Daryl Simpson's parents go through the same thing. You go down the list, Adrian Ely, all these huge guys. When he talked about I think when he and I talked about it, he had family coming in and he was talking about getting all the food for all his family and how much of it was just for Bray. Like they were talking about like, oh man, we got all these sides of ribs, but we got to have like 3 sides for Bray. And then we got to do all this, and then there's about a pound of potato salad for Bray. And you're just like, good. I mean, like, that's not exactly what he said, but it was just astronomical how much food was just set aside for his 17-year-old son.
You know what? I know you were still at OU at the time, but I remember the stories that Wes Sims' mother would tell me. Because you remember Wes Sims played with it wasn't just Wes Sims, but Russell Dennison and Lance Donnelly. Yep. Like they would just come and raid. Like she would literally go to the grocery store and get as much food as she possibly could. But those 3 would come in a day and it would all be gone.
Is it me or does Russell Dennison seem like the friend that ate a lot more food than the kid that lived there? Like he ate more of the food than Wes.
And he's a strength coach now, so he probably eats just as much.
Special teams icon.
You remember him, Carey. Like he always seemed like a guy that just bounced off the walls at all times.
He was insane, yeah.
And so his metabolism is just the guy that eats a pizza and loses like a pound the next day.
Next time we do a drunk podcast, I have a really good Wes Sims story.
Do you?
Yeah.
We'll have to edit it out the next day?
It might not even be able to be played. I don't know. I don't want to be sued.
Okay. Anybody up for some ratings and reviews? Because there have been some new ones.
Only if they're good. That's my number 1 rule on ratings and reviews.
There are some that praise one Eddie Ratto.
All right, let's read them.
Let's see here. I apologize, Josh. The music went off during your recruiting update. I was not trying to say that OU's recruiting was a joke. Or that anyone that is a recruiter is a joke at OU. But yeah, iTunes, you rate us, we read you, and we've been doing that for a while now on the podcast. It's a very popular feature we have here. So we have gotten quite a bunch of new reviews. We'll start out with Eddie is Woke from BMAC 2017. Eddie is the most sophisticated, eloquent, and all-around good guy. He stay woke. And Josh has all the recruiting analysis for us nerds. And Carey is a turkey leg hater. I just said that grown men, once you get past a certain age, you can't be seen walking around the state fair with a turkey leg. Like Eddie,
Wrong.
you could not be. You shouldn't be walking around with a turkey leg at the state fair this weekend.
I think the chances of that happening are better than the chances of that not happening.
So you're saying potential turkey leg?
I mean, it just depends on how the thing goes.
All right, moving on. This one, we had a thing going where people got really upset at me. I can't even remember why now. Oh, it was the whole Pat Jones thing. So some of that is carryover from that. Here's another one. Ratto keeps it real. While Murdoch coddles Traber and his sensitive ego and Josh stays PC, Eddie tells it how it is and keeps it real. Are you, like, going to the Fiji house and just demanding, like, sitting there with the pledges, making sure that they type in a review that's favorable to you?
That's a good idea.
You know what? It's part of initiation. He's got, like, his paddle over him.
Yes.
Like, he's letting them know what's going on.
All right, I want you to write Eddie Ratto bleeps.
If we're going on, I think I'll say bitch of the week is Jay Novacek's son. Read up on it.
What?
Oh.
The former Dallas Cowboy tight end?
Yeah.
Carey, are you unaware of what he's talking about?
Yeah, I don't know.
You have to read up on that. That's some pretty interesting stuff.
Okay. Hamsters involved or anything?
No, he's just sounds like he's a loser.
All right, Seattle Sooner. Well, the review is by Seattle Sooner. The title of the review is Seattle Sooner. I don't think he understood what was going on there. He did give us 5 stars, though.
Probably visited the medical marijuana shop before.
Yeah, that's possible. As an Oklahoman and OU alum in the Pacific Northwest, it's challenging to find content outside of UW, USC, UCLA, LOL, and Wazoo up here. The Scoop provides titillating info on all things OU related, ranging from up-to-date recruiting info, how's Baton Rouge treating you, Jacob Phillips, to post-game day analysis. Love hearing this pod each week as it provides superior OU-related info for those of us transplanted outside of the Sooner State. Keep up the good work, my dudes. Eddie, that wasn't about you. Are you okay with that?
No, that was good.
All right.
You just like that he used titillating.
Yeah. And here's our final new review that I'll read for you. Another 5 stars, all 5 stars. And we've said this many times. Look, you can give us a horrible review. Make it 5 stars, though, if you're joking. If you really think we suck and you want to give us 1 star, one guy did that one time.
Why don't you just slide in my DMs? We'll take care of that.
This one is from WRS89. His review title is 5 stars. And he gave 5 stars. It says, a great combination of cutting-edge football discussions with great comedic relief. Eddie is a rising star, but lacks compassion for humans pretty much at all times. That's accurate. Sad. Josh keeps the motor going. He is the brain behind the insightful information, even though I feel like I'm being put in timeout every time he talks, and he yell talks. I get flashbacks. The guy that is not verified on Twitter does do a good job at setting the tone for the podcast, and is great. That is me. Although I am still waiting for his TRT to kick in, so he is that my testosterone therapy?
I think so.
To kick in, so he shifts from talking about Wilco all the dang time and adds a little more Nirvana and Soundgarden. The audio levels sometimes sound like crap, but not all the time. 5 stars. So I'll have you know, WRS89, I have both Nirvana and Soundgarden on vinyl. Okay.
I've never heard you talk Wilco on the podcast. Is this
It's probably
Morning Animals carryover?
Probably.
Okay.
Message board.
Band nerds.
Eddie really does not have any. Okay, I'm going to shut off this stupid music. Eddie really has there's no love of music in him.
And it's just bizarre with the two of us.
Sports.
I literally,
do you have any other interest besides sports?
No.
Other than drinking?
Not
that
really.
Doesn't count. Are there like TV shows that you watch? Have you ever watched like a series?
Yeah, The Office, Breaking Bad.
Okay, so you enjoy those.
Yeah, absolutely. Seinfeld.
I just like knowing that you have a hobby of some type.
Okay, that's an important question, Eddie. Who's your favorite Seinfeld character?
George.
Yep, that fits.
I feel like I have a little George in me.
Yeah, I that was where I was leaning that you would go, but I wanted to hear it.
I love George.
Did we talk about Eddie's run-in last week at the after party, Josh?
If we're talking about Eddie having interest outside of football, it was touched on the periphery. If I
because we never really got into the after party, but Natty's for Patty met up with Lauren Chamberlain.
She wanted a picture.
It was amazing. Like,
a fan wanted a picture, and I gave her a picture.
Jared Followell and I were standing there just in awe that Eddie was talking to a woman.
She wanted.
We'd never seen it before.
I gave a fan the picture. She wanted a picture. I gave it to her.
I hear wedding bells. Love is in the air.
Did you get digits in return?
She sent me the picture. Yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah.
So you have her. You have her digits.
I'm not gonna say I do or don't, but I might.
I thought you were gonna say something else. No. When Do entered the picture.
No.
A gentleman never tells, Eddie.
That's right.
But he's
so you're
no
safe.
Gentleman.
You can say whatever you want to.
Yep.
No comment.
Are you attracted to her in any way?
Yeah, she's really hot.
Okay. So it's out there. Natty's for Patty.
Shoot or shoot.
It was impressive, though. I got to admit, I was impressed.
Had the Oklahoma tuxedo on. I was feeling good. I was feeling it.
We got pretty drunk that night.
And that's part of the reason why they lost to Iowa State.
If you guys had more on point all week.
Yeah, we had a bad week last week. We did not prepare.
Our game preparation was not good.
We had a vegan meal that was actually excellent.
That was part of the reason they lost. So we'll take blame.
Ate too many plants.
Ate too many plants. Yeah.
All right, Josh. Anything you want? Any more wisdom you want to impart on the community at large before we get out of here?
No, I guess the only thing, because I kind of wanted to get into it, but we'll make it real quick. OU and Texas. I'm getting into doing the under the hood for Texas and kind of going over their game against Kansas State. Don't be shocked if this is a little bit more of a shootout than everybody thinks. Like, I think everyone's going to guess a little lower, but
think double 40s.
Basically, these two defenses play right into the hands of the two offenses. Texas wants to be aggressive. They want to be crazy, and that's going to give Baker Mayfield the downfield chances he wants. And Oklahoma's defense is Oklahoma's defense. So Colin Johnson may live in Jordan Thomas's nightmares for a while. So that would be the things I guess I would leave everyone with.
How much,
to a little cheer going into their OU Texas weekend.
How much can you look at the OU Houston game and get an idea of what? I mean, is that a bad barometer?
Here's the barometer. Just like the Dunbar guy, back shoulder throws all day long.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be interesting because, I don't think Ellinger is a particularly gifted passer right now. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's got some ability, but at the same time, was Greg Ward ever a talented passer? No, not really. He had a great day that day. He made a lot of throws that he wouldn't make normally, kind of like the Kevin Kempt kid. So, I mean,
Kyle Kempt.
We'll see Kyle Kempt.
Ooh,
yeah.
Look at Eddie jumping down Josh's throat.
The best Iowa State quarterback I've ever seen.
He was better than Seneca was when he made a trip to Norman.
Oh, he was terrible that day.
I mean, it's fair to say that Iowa State is the best 2-2 team in the country. I mean, come on. That's a joke. By the way.
Talent.
Kyle Kempt, Heisman Trophy finals.
It might have been Kevin Kempt. I really don't know.
it was Kyle Kempt.
God.
I just want to know what you have against Josh where you just jump down his throat
No, I was just joking.
Oh.
Think some resentment towards one of your bosses?
No.
Eddie has some deep. I didn't send him the audio for one of the videos I did, and he's a little pissed off about it. So
that's okay. I haven't sent him Jay Bulware yet either. So, all right. I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate everybody listening, and I hope everyone's happy. This is a non-drunken podcast, so if you're afraid of letting your children listen, you should never let your children listen to this podcast. I think we're clear on that. So, just don't get mad at us when your 8-year-old's sitting there and they're learning new words, and don't blame it on us. It's your fault.
I mean, would you let your kid look at Pornhub with you? Probably not.
I'm sure it happens by mistake sometimes.
That'd be weird.
When Laney listens to the replay, Laney, you're not allowed to watch Pornhub.
All right, I've learned that we have to cut things off, otherwise Eddie will keep talking for 20 minutes, whether he's drunk or sober or whatever. But I appreciate the Lauren Chamberlain story and getting it out in the open. That was chicken soup for the soul for me.
Call me.
All right. Thank you to Josh McQuistion back in his own studio. Thanks to Eddie Radosevich. I'm Carey Murdoch. We'll see you guys next time on the Unofficial 40.
Podcasts from Soonerscoop.com.